everything's working. I just waved hello. Ah, then we can wait for people to show up. 2 people are there already. Erin says hello. Hi, Erin. Welcome. And we got a like. Carla says, hi, Siofra and Ian. Happy New Moon Day. Hi, Carla. Yes, it is New Moon Day. Thank goodness. We could use a refresher. Tina says hello. Hi, Tina. Jonna says, hi, guys. Hi, Jonna. Ian says hello and welcome to all. We have a sunny day today. We weren't sure if we were going to, but the sun is out. Everything looks good. Tooth is pretty much healed, or the gum, I should say. The tooth is gone. So that's better. Thank goodness. Antibiotics worked. Teresa says hi, still in PJs. Good for you, Teresa. Why not? I can't see you. So doesn't bother me. Yep. Blue Moonstone. Hi, Siofra and Ian. Hi, Blue Moonstone. Love the name. I have a pink moonstone on my staff. Ian says, please feel free to chat about magical, mystical subjects even if you are a beginner. Yes, absolutely. Carla says, glad to hear you're all healed up. I am. Donald says, feels like winter is starting by me. I hope you're feeling spring starting. Well, like it's nice weather out, and yeah, things are starting to.
Our yard thinks it's spring.
Yeah, that's for sure. Got to mow it. It's like really tall. Got the front done. He's now got to do the back, which is
working on vehicles. So yeah.
Yeah, we've been working on endless vehicle repairs. But yeah, now we have a friend who is a welder who's going to come over tomorrow after work and check out the frame of our vehicle because our door is like wanting to not be straight, and Ian took the door off. So we thought the door was the problem. It's actually damaged from an accident before we ever got the car. That's on the actual frame itself and needs to be welded. So, yeah. But we know a welder, so yay for connections. And she works on ships, so she knows what she's doing. Blue Moonstone says, just finished decorating for Beltane. Are you guys doing anything special for the holiday? No, we used to do I was actually talking about this just the other day. We used to do an event, community event, every year. That Beltane was the event that we would host. And Ian actually created a portable maypole so that we could just take it wherever we were going. But we just really don't have the energy to do all the organizing and everything. And didn't get as much of an appreciation from people for what we were doing and the work that went into it as we had hoped. So we're just kind of like laying back and just accepting the spring and going, yay, it's happening, although my dreams have gone insane, so you never know. Violet says, hello, you two. Hi, Violet. Yeah, so yeah, it's been wild dreams. And it took longer for the Pope to pass than I expected, but he has passed, as we all know now. So I guess we'll see who the next Pope is going to be. It'll be interesting. Not Catholic, so it doesn't matter to me as far as that goes, but it's kind of interesting to see the attention that is paid to this particular position slash situation event. So, yeah. Someone says, I understand that. Yes. I mean, I've done this for so many years. I probably started doing public events when I lived in Santa Cruz, which was in like 86, I think is when I started doing them. So I've done a lot of public events over the years and then private events and so forth. And, it's like, yeah, at some point, conserving my energy becomes a priority when it comes down to it. So Carla says, those dreams, right? Mine were so weird and fragmented. They're all back to normal now. Nope, mine aren't back to normal yet. Last night was another entire slew of all kinds of stuff, so I'm hopeful that we'll come back to normal soon. Donna says, I was going to ask you to be careful about trusting a welder, but ship welders are like the Navy SEALs of welders. They're even better than boiler welders. That's cool. Good luck. Yeah, and she's a friend of the family. We've known her since she was a child. And she's going to look at it and see if she thinks that she can do the job before and make a plan. So, yeah, I think it'll come out better than it is. So for sure.
Well, yeah, because it's been getting worse. We've had the car for a while, and it's been getting worse over the years, and didn't realize it was actually the metal tearing because of the previous wreck it'd been in.
Teresa says you should ask your granddaughter to organize events for you. I'll bet she'd be super at that. Yeah, right now she's too focused on her own stuff. She hasn't been home for almost like 5 days because she's having fun with her new boyfriend. So, yeah, not this year. Maybe next. We'll see. Gabrielle says, hi, everyone. Hi, Gabrielle. Welcome. Yeah, so, but I am wearing my fairy star and doing my connections with that kind of thing. Life is interesting, I have to say. Can't really see it very well, but there's my fairy star. Ah. So the next full moon is in 2 weeks, and I'm going to make an event like I did the last time for the Amethyst Crystal Web. I've got them in my calendar now, so I know when the full moons are. I went through to August to put them in and figure out. I'm trying to do it the night before the moon is full, so that people who live other places on the planet can do it the next day or when they get into the night, and still have the moon coming to fullness to really charge it up. So, yeah. Gabrielle says, beautiful. Thank you. Yep. So, I'm busy making shawls for everyone I know. Apparently. But, and that's been kind of fun. Just to sort of get my fingers in a project and helping my hands, sort of getting the dexterity, making sure I keep that. So they're kind of fun to do. I've gotten 3 of them finished and given away, and I'm working on the 4th one right now. And the 4th and 5th one are going to my mother and my sister in Virginia. So I have to finish 2 before I can send them off, because I'm going to send them together. And then they can fight over them if they want. They can share them if they want, since they're in the same house. Like, yeah, it'll be fun. So I like the idea of making things of myself, because like you have the energy of the person who crafted it if you know them in person, and then I have the knowing that I made something for someone that I care about, and that when they're wearing it, it's like I'm giving them a hug or paying attention to them or something like that, and they can wrap themselves in it since it's a shawl. So I kind of like that notion. And I think that that can make a big difference. I've always liked the idea of making my own things, and for a long time now, and using them. Because then I know the energy that's there as well. I don't have any surprises. I don't have to worry about what's there. And fabric in itself, knot work and fabric work and so forth is a magical operation if you choose to focus on that when you're doing it. So to all of those crafters out there, good. Good for you. Birds are flying around having a good time. So what do we want to talk about today? It's like our neighbor's doing some woodwork over there. They're banging.
Yeah, he's probably stacking his shopping.
Erin says, I do it when I work with fiber. Yeah. Carla says, got some lavender, catmint, and rosemary planted in pots over the weekend. Figured I'd get started on a magical potted garden. Working a little green magic. Oh, yeah. I like that. I mean, and the my rosemary is so huge at this point. I have to cut it way back because it's sticking out of the fence and trying to escape in that direction into the world. But Teresa says I like owning art that friends have made as well as my own art, more personal that way. Yep. Angelo says greetings all. Hi Angelo. And our bunny likes the lavender, and he can't have the rosemary. We don't have any catmint right now, but we do have lemon balm, and he likes that a lot. And we do have peppermint and spearmint, and yeah, I think those are the main mints we have right now. Teresa says, let's talk about new energy bumping up against old energy. Well, isn't that every day? Every time you have a new idea, you have to, you know, rearrange things based on your old assumptions. And that's sort of an internal process, not just external as well. But, whenever you're trying to change your view and how things work and so forth, you're definitely doing that. And that would be the new moon you're talking about, though. Gabrielle says, the Kundalini is in my head a lot this past week. I feel pressure, but also a pleasant feeling in my brain. It feels like a spinning top in the top of my head, then it opens. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like this. I like the tingles, the brain tingles that I get from the Kundalini sometimes. It is a very pleasurable experience. It's like hard to describe. So since you're having it, you know what I mean. And there's always resistance when you're trying to change your energy movement. So Jen says, hello, my online family. I hope everyone is doing well. Yes, we are. Claire Harvey says, so happy to catch my first live. Really inspired by you. Well, welcome, Claire. Thank you for attending. Gabrielle says, I feel such a mix of feelings, resistance, relaxation. Yes, brain tingles are awesome. Yeah, they are. They feel good. It's kind of like a whole bunch of serotonin all at once. Just like, shoo. Carlos says, I almost got the spearmint and peppermint too. Maybe we'll go back and grab some since you mentioned it and I had them in my hand. Cool. Jono says, hi, Claire. Claire says, hi, Jono. Teresa says, new moon, but strong tides of energy in the world right now. I feel like things are trying hard to break through on a global level. One hopes. Uh-huh, definitely. But like I said, it's hard to change directions and there's a lot of resistance. Not just internally, but externally as well. Trying to figure out how to maneuver your way through the resistances is the key that we can bring to the table as far as our own lives are concerned. It's like feeling where the resistances are and then finding a path around them so that they don't they're not about us as much, because you don't have to go head to head with a resistance like that. It's not necessary. You can kind of side walk it around, kind of like Tai Chi, and not letting it move you so much as you're letting it move around you, kind of thing, or move by you. Sort of hard to explain, but that's how I get most of my stuff done. Is I figure out where the resistances are in society as well, bureaucracy, etc., as well as energetically, and find a path forward. Kind of like when Ian and I first met, and he had his natural defenses, and our first date, and he would like put up like an energetic like whoa, and I go like, well, that's interesting, and then just sort of go right around it and ignore it completely. Like, no, that's not for me. So okay, so we could connect, and I think that's a secret to manifesting in reality. Gabrielle says, and I'm seeing a purple and magenta light in my place and feel like I could take off flying. I want to be with God, but also want to stay me. Cool. Do that. Stay you. I've been seeing some definite interesting purple around in my aura, like around my deep aura, not the inside one with all the green, but right around that. There's been a lot of purple in there, and I'm thinking it's partially because of working with the amethyst web and focusing on that, bringing that energy more to the foreground, which is way cool. Carla says, there's an urgency, Teresa, for sure. It feels like a pressure cooker. Now, we have a ways to go, though, before it will blow its top. So, we'll see. Not quite yet there, but it is building in that direction. Teresa says, Ian needs a pocket world, but he has to come out more. Come out of his world. Thinking about it.
I'm just feeling really, really sleepy today, and I'm having a hard time staying awake. Sorry.
Gabrielle says, yeah, I had to ground myself, so I go cuckoo. Good. Grounding is so important. I mean, part of this whole process is being able to be in this life and in this reality and in this time and in this body and connect beyond at the same time, because we can't really help if we just go out and stay there. It's like we're not as effective that way. I know in Santa Cruz I could always tell people who were like really in their heads and meditating constantly and completely ungrounded, because I could watch them walk down the street and I tell you, it looked like their feet weren't touching the ground. And when I would look at them, it's like, okay, that person is like up here somewhere in La La Land, and off they go, and it's not as effective. So Gabrielle says, don't go kooky. Gabriel says, I imagine a tree would, excuse me, to hold me down. Yeah, that connection helps. I mean, if you're going to be the tree, you can choose which part of the tree to be. You can be all the tree, with the roots and the trunk and the branches and the leaves. And depending on what you're needing, you can be up in the leaves where the air is coming and the light's coming from the sun, and all those chemical processes are taking place, and you're like regenerizing and so forth. And then you can follow that energy through the trunk with all those wonderful fluids and things like that go up, and follow them back down into the roots and then go down into the ground. So there's a lot of potential in the tree imagery. It doesn't have to be just grounding, but you can do all the other stuff while grounded, so it makes it nice. Gabrielle says, yep, I'm trying to be one of those. Not to be one of those. You're having fun with words today. Violet says, my very first rock is a beautiful $80 amethyst from a rock shop, but I've been so consumed with being packed and which thing to do next that I haven't been able to participate in the crystal web. Well, anytime you start, it's a good time. So whenever you feel ready, feel free to join in. We've been doing it for 7 years. As of this month, actually. What's today's date? The 27th? Yeah, 2 days from now it'll be 7 years, because we did it on April 29th, 7 years ago. Teresa says, I did the sacred tree meditation on my outside swing yesterday, and spontaneously the goddess is alive became the dragon is alive. Felt great. Awesome. Being connected, that's the thing, and feeling safe to do it. Is everything okay with you guys, with you, Jono? Because we saw Luna's notation about an immigration attorney and thought it had something to do with you, so we wanted to make sure that you were okay. Oh, and I watched a documentary on the pangolin and a program in South Africa, actually, where they started rehabilitating and rewilding the pangolins, which is quite a process to go through. It's really quite remarkable to see. And I thought of you then as well, because I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Carla says, that's the day before. Oh, John says, Gabriel, a lot of people on the path have a lot of air element going on. If anyone has an abundance of air and manages to incorporate enough earth element, they can be really great. Yeah. Yep. This is true. Carla says, that's the day before my birthday. I'm a Beltane baby, May Eve. All right. Violet says, reader is rememberer. Tina says, I got some new amethysts too. Awesome. Gabrielle says, yeah, I don't want to get into an escapism mentality. True spirituality is accepting reality of life and experiencing while grounded. But being kooky and flying away is tempting. But I have a day job, so I can't.
No, just remember it all needs to be balanced. So, like Jana was intimating there, if you're all air, you need to, if for a perfect example, if a person was all air and nothing else, they might have a tendency to have all kinds of very vivid imaginations and things, and very good ideas and things like that, and great intellectual capacity, but not enough perseverance and steadfastness and down to earthiness to actually put them into any functional form. So that's where you need the earthiness. If you're all air and if you're all earth, you tend to get bogged down and dragged down in everything, and what you need is some of that earth to lift you back up above the everyday doldrums of just everyday, trudging, which is what can happen if you're all earth and you don't have enough air.
Yeah.
Air will get your mood back up where it belongs.
One of the things that annoyed me about one of my previous partners, the David from Canada, was that he had all these grandiose ideas that wouldn't be practical to implement in actual civilization, reality, earth things. And my attitude towards it all was, if you can't actually apply it and it makes no sense to where people are now, then it's pointless and useless, and shut up. Stop talking about it. He did that to me all the time. It drove me crazy, and by the end I just wanted to hit him with a stick and make him stop. Jono says we need Violet says, Gabriel says, Claire says, I'm all earth and air. And then Gabriel says, I'm a Gemini, Jono, so I'm definitely air. I'm an artist and a singer, trying to do more physical stuff. Violet says, the post you missed somehow, April 29th is my brother's birthday, so the crystal web is associated now. I will remember. Awesome. Jono says, we need immigration lawyers to navigate the visa process. The anti-immigration thing didn't stay in the USA. The whole world is feeling it. Oh, I'm sorry. Throughout history, when times are tough, everyone blames Jews and immigrants. Makes it more difficult to get a visa. I'm sorry. I thought that might be the case, but having an attorney is definitely going to help, I hope. Gabrielle says, oh my God, Ian, you read me like a book. And I'm trying not to be flaky. I have to write down things and try to be practical when it comes with the artist territory. Arcanum says, good old elemental magics. Yep. Being balanced in the elements. One of our goals.
Yep, it's very powerful. Once you're balanced, then you get, you're at the center point. You get the ability to do all kinds of things and work with any of the elements and the Akasha. When the elements are not balanced, it's really hard to work with the Akasha or get into the Akasha, which means it's really hard to have any transfer of consciousness or mental travel or anything like that. If you want to get into that kind of stuff, you balance your elements out.
Definitely.
And then it becomes way easier.
Jen says, Siofra and Ian, do you have advice for how to improve our spiritual sensitivity, acuity, and how do we know if we are making progress?
Continue. Keep working on it.
Yep. Keep practicing it. Make time for it. Try not to have too many set goals for it, because true progress will be more subtle, and you'll know by looking back to where you've been how much progress you've actually made. And it's all about, trying to be present in your life day to day as much as possible.
Well, that's where, a question like that is exactly something where Barden's work comes in, because it gives you, you're making spiritual progress. If you can succeed at the exercises in his books, you can be guaranteed you're making spiritual progresses. And this way it gives you goals with each chapter. You meet this goal, you meet that goal, and if you can make it through chapter after chapter that you're balancing the elements, you're becoming more spiritual, and you can learn to gauge your own progress by gauging your own balance in the elements and things. You can make there's whole procedures for making a list of your character traits and things according to the elements, and you can find out how balanced you are and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff. It's hard to know how much progress you're making from your own personal things. I also recommend making a diary, because then you can look back and see where you were, like back in the past, and that'll help you a lot when you think you're not making progress, which I do a lot. I think I'm not making any progress, and then you can look back at the diary and um, judge whether you're making any progress or whether you're spinning your wheels, which is another potential issue with people trying to make progress. But yeah.
And the other thing too is not necessarily a straight line. I mean, it's more like a spiral, like you're going around, and I visualize it that way. It's like you go through your stuff, you start to process that stuff, you start to understand that stuff, you integrate that stuff, and you move out of that stuff, and then you're back to starting this new stuff, but it's at a different level. So you're like going in and hopefully you're going in an upward spiral as you continue with your progress. And the other thing too about the diary is, like, after you've made enough progress, you look at your old diaries and you'll go like, what? How was I ever that stupid? Then you'll know that you've gone past whatever that was that you were working on at the time, because you were like, I don't understand that anymore. Which is where I'm at with some of my earlier diaries. I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. So Violet says, do you have any suggestions with playing cards, the pips, to move me from the Ten of Swords of Ruin over to the Earth 10 of Pentacles? The air cards are super challenging, 8, 9, and 10 anyway. I am seeking employment daily. I don't have any ideas, do you?
No.
Keep at it.
Yeah. Since you're mentioning the tarot, you might try doing some tarot magic along those lines to.
Yeah, you could put out a layout of what you would like your desired result to be and use that as a focus. So you could use the ones that you're having trouble with and then put other cards above them in the future, kind of thing, as a transforming into, maybe.
But bottom line on that is again, it's kind of the same thing. Balance your elements and write out your character traits and things to determine it. Generally, where you're at is a result of all your past karmas all put together, plus some random stuff that just comes in out of the blue, which always happens to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things. You have to figure out how to make your own way there. But since you're talking the tarot, you should probably use that for inspiration and try to use that to move yourself along there.
So Jono says, for anyone new here, do you have a moment for me to tell you about our Lord and Savior Barden? I think Ian just mentioned him.
Well,
so
yeah, you have to apologize for that. I go with the Barden thing so much, but because I read a little bit ahead and got some of these comments and things. Barden is, simply put, in my opinion, the only magician to have written that I've ever found, and I've read a lot of things and a lot of old documents and anything that's I have to read translations, stuff that's been translated to English. But I've read lots and lots of stuff for years and years, and Barden is the only one who has truly published the actual secrets. And when you come to his book on Kabbalah, for example, there's nothing even close. It's totally different from anything else. It's totally different from the Western Kabbalah. And if you watch the little video I made on Barden, you'll find out that I believe he was exactly who he says he was, a true reincarnated master who brought with him all of his knowledge. And you have to read his books to see. And it's definitely not for everybody, because it requires a certain amount of dedication to the magical path that a lot of people don't have. But that's basically my take on it.
Teresa says, I'm mostly air, but have worked hard with the other elements and feel way more effective than I was as a youth. Gabriel says, hopefully I'm not hot air. Claire says, why is Franz Barden your Lord and Savior? We've answered that question. Violet is not really Lord and Savior, just a really good source of material. And Violet says, well, Franz Barden has just about answered that question almost again. I'm balancing the elements. I made a sigil to put under my tea light every morning, too. It is something, anyway. General says, Claire, because he gave us a dot to dot that gives us magical powers.
Well, that's actually, while funny, it's actually pretty much true. He has exact procedures, and it's pretty easy to read through his books. And if you have an understanding, Siofra will tell you I'm a technical person. Technical and electronics are my thing. That's what I do. And when I read Barden's stuff, it all fits together. Just like reading a good technical manual or something, where everything makes perfect sense if you start understanding the principles. So that in itself convinced me he was the real deal. But now with our modern technology, we've got pictures of him, stories from his family, his friends, from his students, testimonials from his students. You can look at a picture of his wife, you can look at a picture of his daughter online. He was a medical doctor. His three best students were also medical doctors. All the facts support him being what he said he was. So that's basically it. I don't mean to proselytize about it, though, by any means, because I know there are, if anything, I know more than anybody that there are a bunch of different paths toward magic and spirituality, and all of them can be sufficient if they're followed. The more important thing is the student's goals and determination and approach towards the whole thing. If you want to become spiritual and you're looking for truth and real spirituality and not to get power over things and things like that, then you can make progress with almost any of them. You have to find one that suits you well and then practice it well. But yeah, you're not. I would certainly would be the last person to promote that Barden would be the be all and end all. Though for me, he's absolutely perfect, and I think he gives more of the truth than I've ever seen written down anywhere by far. But yes, no proselytizing, because I certainly know that there are saints and mystics and magicians from all kinds of walks of life and all kinds of traditions and things.
So Teresa says, Hecate is my Lord and Savior, LOL. Lady and Savior, sorry. Yeah. And Janet says, any advice for someone who's trying to do mirror magic? I've been trying to communicate with my deities through my mirror, but have not been successful. Well, I do have a video on mirror magic or mirror gazing, scrying, and that kind of thing, where I try to explain how what you think you're going to see and hear is probably not how it's actually going to come through. So letting go of expectations and anticipation of exactly what that's going to be like is sort of the first step. And getting to know yourself and your own voice, knowing your internal dialogue and what your own thoughts are and so forth is rather vital, because if you don't know what those are, then you can't tell when a different voice or different thought form is there to inspire or appear to you or give you a message. And so the gazing part, you need to soften your eyes and kind of make them unfocused so that you're not seeing the surface of the mirror, or you can even use the mirror with your eyes closed and help you put you in that state and use the mirror inside your mind in order to see things. So that would be one suggestion. So Gabrielle says that sounds kind of loaded. Claire, maybe rephrase that statement. And Violet says 10 of clubs. Claire says, what do you mean? Gabrielle says, what do you mean? So apparently there's some confusion there. I understood what she meant. She just wanted to know what we meant or what Jono meant. So Carla says, I just made a copper spiral last night. Interesting description. Yes, isn't it? Violet says, that is wonderfully laid out. Thank you. Claire says, what? LOL. Teresa says, grab the hilt. Let's come back here. Grab the hilt of the sword instead of having the blade pierce you. Self-mastery. Yeah, well, you really don't want to handle the sword. Violet says, that was cool, Ian. Your thoughts on Barden, thank you. Claire says, thank you. Ken says, thank you so much. I still haven't bought any of Barden's books yet due to lack of funds. Which one would you recommend for me to use right now, as I can realistically only afford one right now?
First of all, let me say that you can find them on the internet and download them.
If you're sneaky.
You can look around, yeah. Um,
Get a
so,
PDF of the book.
but there's several things. The one you want to start with if you want to start practice is the initiation into hermetics. Um, he's got and start with that one. That would definitely be the first one. There's been a bunch of other stuff published by his students and things about Barden, and there's a fiction book called Probato, which will give you a lot of hints and clues into Barden and his practice. It's not quite a spiritual autobiography of him, but it's not too far off from that. He gave an outline for it before he was died in prison by the Germans. Watch my video if you have curiosity about that. That's on there. What was I getting at?
Which one should you do?
Right, but if you find them to download, I definitely recommend reading Verbato because it's very interesting. Even though his secretary filled it out, he didn't write the whole thing. He just had his outline, but it's very interesting and provides a lot of hints into things. His secretary was one of his first students. So, yeah, definitely the initiation into Hermetics, but the other stuff makes fascinating reading. His other two books, which are Practice of Magical Evocation and Key to the True Kabbalah, are useful for information, but he recommends you don't embark on those until after you succeeded up until the step 8 of his first book. Then you can take those two on once you reach step 8. It's a 10-step book for his first book, and it's basically a full-on initiate yourself course, basically.
So she says, I do keep a diary and also do video journals. Beth says, hi everyone. Hi Beth. Shay says, hello Beth. Hello everyone. Hi Shay.
Hello.
Gabrielle says, everyone has their favorites. Nothing wrong with it. People can choose what they resonate with. Yep.
Exactly, and if they resonate with it and they're really trying to make progress and really wanting it, spiritual progress, that's really all you need. If you have that, you'll find your way. So that's more important than the path you choose, is to keep trying to be on a genuine, legitimate, authentic path for that purpose, and you'll make it. Regardless of where you start and where you go from there, you'll find the right way. As long as you keep your goal proper in mind and don't get set aside on trying to influence people or gain money or wealth. Nothing's wrong with money or wealth, but if you turn your magic just to that purpose, and you stop making your spiritual progress, of course.
Yep.
But I've got no problem with trying to use magic to make some wealth. Don't get me wrong on that.
So Gabriel says, hey Beth. Beth says, hi Gabriel. Janet says, thank you so much. You're welcome. Beth says, hi Shay. Gabriel says, yeah, you guys are very open to different views and encourage people to pick what resonates and helps them. Absolutely, because everyone is different. And basically, whatever path you're on is the one that you've created for yourself. So every path is slightly different. It's unique. Shay says, Barden sounds authentic, always an important aspect in a teacher or expert. Authentic in the same way you two are. Well, thank you. Jonna says, I'm part of another magical community. I keep preaching Barden. They've started making fun of me for it. I'm sorry.
Well, that's all right. You know, I have heard some stuff about some hermetic magicians who were, mind you, I've only heard this from what I would call the lower tiered hermetic magicians that diss Barden for Crowley's stuff and things like that. But I generally find that those are the ones that are below a certain level of understanding in general, or either that or actually haven't perused the material themselves. It's one thing to hear somebody talking about it, you know. It's another thing to peruse it yourself.
Yep. Beth says, Shay, absolutely, we're all different yet so much alike. Janet says, it's one that I listen to on audio right now on YouTube. I put in Verbato. Clara says, initiation into Hermetics, full text, and I put in initiation to Hermetics because I forgot the N. Jono says, no sneakiness, the copyright expired. Barden's initiation into Hermetics is 100% free, clear, legal, kosher online. Oh, awesome, Jono, thank you. Arcanum says, yes, the initiation into Hermetics, the classic, Lana Banana says, hello there, Siofra. Could you make a video about power animals? I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Okay. I have talked about my experiences with animals, and some of it's got my power animals in it, but I'll see if I can do something more specific. Jen says, thank you so much, Ian. Angela says, Initiation into Hermetics, A Course of Instruction of Magic Theory and Practice by Barden, Franz, copied, pasted, no caps. Channel 437 says, do you have wood nymphs in your spiritual bloodline? I'm sorry, I'm just picking up on that for some reason. Do you have wood nymphs? Sorry, I meant you. I don't know. I probably have fairy blood in my history, and I have a very powerful connection to trees. So I've probably met a wood nymph or two, all things considered. Sandcat says, hello everyone. Hi, Sandcat. Yeah, so it's one of those things. It's I certainly encounter a lot of different otherworldly beings, especially of the fae variety, nature, spirits, and so forth, and always have. So, and my family comes from a west coast of Ireland, and there seems to be a connection to the she in that particular town with our family. So I don't know, but I don't worry about it because I've remembered a lot of different lifetimes. So whatever I have from this life is just sort of a part of the entire picture and small part when it comes down to it. And I don't focus too much on what my bloodline might imply when it comes to that. It's like it's my individual spiritual path that's important, not necessarily where I arrived from. It doesn't mean anything except that happens to be the body that I'm in. And I noticed that when I was young, actually. And I thought I liked the one I got. I thought it was a good body. My sisters did not. They were quite concerned because I'm like the smallest breasted woman in my family, and my younger sister was terrified that she would grow up and have small breasts like me, which she told me fairly recently, which is hysterical. I'm like, no, I'm happy, so yay. But yeah, it's the kinds of experiences that I remember from so many different timelines and different kinds of cultures and so forth, I think helps to give me a broader view of the whole subject of everything when it comes to that, because there's just so many different ways of doing everything, and I've done them. Arcane says, are you into astrology and birth charts, Siofra? I'm just getting into it, a whole new exciting world. Not really. I mean, I've had mine done several times and they've always been wrong. So it kind of like, for me. And again, like I said, with all the different experiences that I've had, so this birth chart, how is all the memories from like the 20 or so lifetimes that I remember pretty consciously at this point going to apply to that astrology thing? Do I have to figure out what those birth charts are and put them all together? I mean, I don't know. So, I figure it's my life. I can do what I want with it. And knowing sort of in general what the planets are doing kind of lets me know what the general energy in the background happens to be. And on some level, it could inform my choices of what to do in a period of time. Like, do I want to buck the elements or the planets or go around them or wait it out or what have you? And I use my intuition for that. But I don't feel like it determines my path or my fate. So yeah, but a lot of people get a lot out of it, so yay. Arcane says, my chart explains me to a T. Channel 437 says, laugh out loud. Gabrielle says, I'm glad you answered the question about the crown chakra opening and spinning. It feels so epic and so much life force. I'm like, oh, is this safe to be like this? You're grounded and in your right mind, so that makes me hopeful that I can safely handle this. Yeah, well, yeah, you definitely want to be in control and decide if it's too much, make it stop.
Yeah, so with the Kundalini stuff, you have to watch out. I had some Kriyas a few years back, quite a few years back at this point, but it resulted in me straining my body too much with the Kriya, and I ended up causing myself a hernia, which Took about 5 or 6 years to really manifest as an obnoxious hernia. It started out as a little tiny tear, and eventually I had to have go through surgery to get it fixed. So you have to be careful and not let, if you start doing the automatic Kriyas and things, just make sure that you don't hurt yourself doing it, because most of the time, most of the ones I've had, I mean, I know there are some that I have heard where they can't stop, and it's like being forced into position by an external force putting your body into a sauna or position or something. But be careful. I could have stopped that, and I hurt myself by letting it go too far. So cautionary tale. Small one in my case. It was hard to get the surgery though. Almost couldn't get it improved. That was a whole nother miracle.
That was another manifestation of mine.
Yeah.
I'm really good at manifesting what we need. Sometimes it's not easy. But, and it took a while to get it done, but I kept persevering and we finally got it done. And the irony of it was when we finally got it approved, I had a dream and I did not want the surgeon that was assigned to us to do the surgery.
Well,
I had
yeah,
to,
it's not like we didn't both know that he was a. But yes, I'm so glad he didn't work on me now.
yeah, I mean, I had a pretty distinct message in my dream life that it could turn out really badly for my
Yeah,
husband.
we both had a bad feeling about him.
And so I took that message to heart, and the medical establishment was like, why? We finally got it approved, and you can't change doctors. I'm like, why can't I change doctors? And they were sure that I couldn't, so I called the clinic, and I said, is it true that I can't change doctors? They said, no, you can have any doctor you want. I'm like, all right then. So then I proceeded. And we got it done, and and I'm glad. And later we heard that the doctor who was going to do the surgery did some really botched surgeries and injured a lot of people.
Yeah, one of them after I got my surgery that we heard about.
Yeah. So when you got a strong intuition, definitely follow it. Lesson learned for that. That says, I'm here, guys. I'm in the final stages of roasting and reducing. Yes, you're always cooking when you're here. But
And
that's fine.
That's what I need to do to lose some weight. I need to roast and reduce. Roast myself and reduce some weight. I'm not hugely overweight, just a bit.
Yeah, you're not hugely overweight, but hey, it's always good to be aware of your body and its health.
I'm fatter than I want to be.
Heavier, not fatter. Yeah. Gabrielle says, yeah, learning to control one's own energy is important. Having a kundalini and being an air sign is quite the rodeo. I'm like, I might need adult supervision with this. Jen says, I'm cooking too. Well, we already had lunch, so there. We're not hungry. We're not going to let this affect us.
And we had chocolate cake.
And we had chocolate cake, yes.
That's right.
Not too sweet, but nice and chocolatey. Arcane says, laugh out loud, Ian, you're hilarious. He does have a quirky sense of humor that I like quite a bit. He didn't think anyone would ever understand his sense of humor, and he makes me laugh pretty well.
Yeah, she gets most of it.
I get most of it. The stupid stuff I don't get, but that's when he's trying to trick me, so that's not the same as having a sense of humor. That's telling a joke.
I don't really ever try to trick her.
No, but he found out he was tricking me, and he thought that was pretty funny. I couldn't remember the joke.
She couldn't remember the joke, so I kept telling her the same joke
over and over again.
For years, the same joke.
And then one year it finally clicked in my head, and I went, you've told me this and told me more, haven't you?
He said, yeah, yes. About 47 times.
And I said, and I never remember the punchline, do I? He said, nope. And then I remembered it after that. So
just because it's such a bad joke. Such a bad joke, you can't remember it. That was the trick.
Yeah. So it was pretty funny. I'm like, oh, you. Yep. So Arcane says, laugh out loud. What was for lunch? Oh, let's see. I found some actually good quality beef on sale.
Steaks.
We don't usually get that. And so it was like, I got like $25 worth of steak for like $5. So I was like, okay, I can do that. And then we had zucchini and mushrooms and rice with it. And white rice, both jasmine rice. I like basmati too. And it was nice. And then we had
That's very
chocolate
nice.
cake and coffee. Yeah. Jen says, yum, it's almost 6 p.m. my time, so for me it's dinner. Beth says, I love cooking roasted carrots, chicken with Dijon mustard, maple syrup, and rice vinegar. Chicken is done, and reducing the sauce. Yes.
Sounds wonderful.
Sounds wonderful. Our bunny is starting to really like carrots. He's getting like 3 twice a day.
But they're mini
Little-
carrots,
little
little
carrots.
baby carrots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arcane says, yes, Jen, for me too. I need to figure out what I want to make. Maybe spaghetti. Never get tired of it. I like the fresh pasta for spaghetti.
Yeah, we can get
We-
that at Safeway.
Yeah, we got spoiled when we found it and tried it, and we're like, why would anyone use any other kind of pasta? And then I went into another store to see if they had any fresh pasta, and they showed me all the dried stuff. I'm like, this isn't fresh. It needs to be refrigerated if it's fresh. These are not dried hard lumps of things. But yes, I like that. We don't have a pasta maker though, so I don't make my own. Too much to do. Beth says, you're reading my mind, Siofra. I was about to ask about the bunny. Yeah, I got the bunny some mats that are supposed to help sort of rub his claws, his toenails down. So I've been trying to get him to use them. So what I'm doing is I'm putting some of his treats that he likes on the mats. So he has to stand on the mat in order to get the treats. So hopefully that'll help with his nails. We have to clip them. Yeah. But he was been really happy the last few days. Morning, he was just bouncing around all over the place, doing binkies nonstop, and then running circles around my husband, which is fun to watch.
Yeah, he's so cute.
And he runs circles around me before I go to bed at night because I always give him some treats before he goes to bed, some of his dry food, and he loves that. He's just like, oh, she's coming, it's coming. He also likes bananas. He now knows what it sounds like when I go into the kitchen and pick up a banana and start to peel it. And he comes running over. It's like, banana? And apparently he doesn't like them if they're too green. When I first got him, one was kind of green, and he looked at it and went like, eh. So I put it down, and a few hours later he decided it was okay. Teresa says, I made sauteed chicken breast slices with green onion, mushrooms, red pepper, celery, and cilantro over spiral pasta with Parmesan. Yummy. And says,
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Siofra doesn't like spicy stuff, but I love it.
No, onions and peppers don't work for me. The rest of it would be fine. Jen says,
pepper.
I'm making Caribbean rice and peas with coconut milk and have some vegan Korean barbecue soy chunks to go with
Oh,
it.
that sounds good.
Beth says, Teresa, yummy. And he's got a sweet tooth. Yes, the bunny does.
I really like the things made of coconut milk stuff. I like the curries and things, and
I
especially
love
the
their
Thai curries, Thai iced tea.
I love
Yep.
the iced tea. It's my favorite thing. I'm sure that's really bad for calories, but oh my God. If I go to a Thai restaurant, I have to have Thai iced tea, and then I have to really work to find something that's not going to bother my mouth or my stomach.
Yeah, so basically, don't go to Thai restaurant.
No, not very often. But we found this wonderful place in Hawaii when we were there. That was a wonderful
True.
restaurant, and it looks like a dump from the outside. It was like more for the locals, so they didn't want tourists to be popping in much. But we saw it and we went in, and it had an indoor place that opened up to the sun, plants all over
Had
the
a whole
place.
garden inside.
Oh my
like an
God.
open garden
And the
inside,
best
yeah.
food. They were fabulous, and they didn't yell at us for not being local. So
Nope,
that
and
was
you
nice.
never know it from the outside. We just saw a little sign and we thought, well, this is convenient. We were walking past it. Let's just try in here. And there it was. Like, wow. Found a hidden treasure.
Yep. Yay us. Sandcat says, we had Thai prawn satay last week, so yummy. Beth says, I make a good coconut curry chicken. Beth says, Sandcat, yummy. All right, so we're now all fooded up. We've got lots of ideas. Janet says, I love food. I'm a foodie, especially seafood. We do a fair amount of salmon.
Yeah. Salmon.
Yeah, Ian doesn't like
I don't like crustaceans, basically.
Yeah.
Any shellfish except for shrimp.
right, but none of the other shellfish.
I don't care for lobster much as far as that goes.
That's a shellfish.
Yeah.
We used to hunt crabs when I was a kid, with a string and a piece of bacon on the beach. I was on the East Coast in the Atlantic. And we would just throw out the string with the bacon on it and slowly reel the string in. And most of the time, there would be a crab following the bacon, and then someone would pick up the crab and stick him in a bucket. Oh well. Janet says, yum. And Arcane says, I hate fish mostly. Yep, that's why everybody is different. Jen says, the hole in the wall places are always the best. Yeah, just don't go to a weird place. Mother's mother's restaurants are usually bad. Moms. We've been to some really bad moms.
Yes, and one of them has a sign that says, "Don't go to Mom's unless you know what happened to Pop."
Yeah. And we went in there, it was like the place was all smoke on one side. There was like 4 tables before we had no smoking in restaurants. And there were 4 tables along one wall for the non-smokers. And all the rest of the restaurant was smoking. And it was filled with motorcycle gangs. It was like, we're like looking at the clientele and we're thinking, yeah, okay, that's the last. We only went there once. That was it. I'm like, we'll find another restaurant next time. Beth says, we have shrimp weekly. Jen says, laugh out loud. Yep. Restaurants are tricky. You never know what you're going to get the first time you go. We don't really go to restaurants much anymore, though.
I went to the wrong Mexican restaurant once and actually stayed there and ate and had a beer and then left. But we got in there and I noticed that over in the corner, Mexicans were playing with their switchblades, and one of them had a gun, flipping it open and closed. It's like, maybe we didn't walk into the right restaurant. Didn't notice that till after we'd already ordered and stuff, though. But yeah, that was in Phoenix, Oregon, actually.
Ah. Gabrielle says, I try not to think about it when I'm eating crab. Arcane says, when I was little, I used to tell my mother I won't eat fish because they're my friends. I wanted to be Ariel so bad. Then I tasted it and hated it anyways. Well, hey, one of my power animals is the deer. And I once had deer meat. Now, this guy, it was his own deer. There was probably 10 people, and everyone ate it. I got violently sick. And as I was throwing up the meal, I knew that I wasn't supposed to eat deer because it was my power animal. And then I find out later that, in some of the Inuit tribes in Alaska area or whatever, there's like one person who can't eat whale meat because they help the tribe know where to go hunt the whales. The whales talk to them. And so it's like their power animal. And so if they ever eat the meat, they lose the connection with the animal. And then they can't do their job anymore. So it was kind of interesting, I thought. It's always interesting learning stuff like that. Janet says, laugh out loud. Jen says, I never knew crabs liked bacon. That's hilarious. Beth says, if anyone comes to the Smoky Mountains, I know the local hole in the wall. Beth says, I almost died eating deer. And no one else got sick but me, so I knew that it wasn't the meat itself that was bad, but yeah, it can happen. Gabrielle says, oh my God, Beth. I could have moose without a problem because we actually hunted and killed a moose and shared it, split it in half with a neighbor. I guess my husband at the time and one of the neighbor's kids went out together and got the moose, and they dressed it, and we got the meat. It's, it didn't bother me, I guess I should say. And it was, free-ish food when it came to that. So yeah, I think we had to rent a locker though to put the meat in. Not quite free. So, yeah. I had to admit it to the hospital, says Beth. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Janet says, thank you for all these gems. I love this channel already. You never know what we're going to talk about on our live show. Food is one of the subjects that comes up every so often, though. Gabrielle says, what if my power animal was a weird animal like an octopus or something? I don't know what mine is yet. Well, I think the octopus would be a wonderful power animal. What do you mean, weird animal? Octopuses are beautiful. In fact, I had that experience with that octopus at the aquarium, and they're very intelligent, and they have all those arms and protective, and I mean they're a great power animal on the I guess the Haida and maybe some of the other coastal tribes of British Columbia. The octopus is like a guardian spirit. That's how I learned about that, and that's why I wanted to go meet the octopus at the aquarium. You know, was taking a nap and had to come out and show himself off to me because I really wanted to see him, and he said, "Okay, fine," and he did. That's in my animal experience video, I think. Talked about it more than once because that was really cool. But you know, whatever your power animal turns out to be, it's yours, so it's not going to be weird. So there.
Yeah, usually it'll be something you have an affinity with anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Janet says, mine is a lion. Arcane says, about that time. It was fun, guys. No, we still have a half an hour, but if you have to go, bye. Nice to drop by. Gabrielle says, they are multifaceted. I do think they're cool. Jen says, octopi are awesome. They are super smart. Gabrielle says, I don't want to eat them because they're smart. And I'd feel bad. Donald says, a moose is a big animal. Here in Africa, we have eland, massive animals, and really delicious. Sorry, vegans. Well, you know, everyone here has got different food needs. And as long as you're eating them, I don't have a problem with it, sustainability-wise. That says, it will come to you in your dreams and you'll always feel a pull. Or it'll, yeah, I mean, with Ian, he did not know he was Coyote until Coyote showed up one day and touched him on the nose and says, you're mine.
Yep. Told me he was my totem animal. Actually, it was preceded by a white horse that came up to me and looked at me and then walked off and walked away. I was like, made you wonder, like, what was that about? Okay.
Keeping an eye out.
Yep.
Janet says, I found out that when I was under a bad spiritual attack, my lion would come and help me in my dreams. And then I went to someone about it. Well, yeah, I have spirit animals and power animals and totem animals, I guess. Well, spirit animals and power animals are probably the same. The totem animal, the deer is both a spirit animal and a totem animal. My totems are deer and bear, and my power animals are deer and black leopard, black panther. No, bear and black panther. That's right. Sorry, bear. Bear is the one that's in both. My brain's not going right. But yes, and they do help me out. I met the panther in a dream. Someone was trying to attack me in a dream state and threw two black panthers at me. And they were running down a hall at me. And he or she came around the corner and looked. And I was standing there with the panthers laying at my feet. And she was like, ooh. And I was like, that was a bad idea. You picked the wrong animal. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. And they do, we had when something weird was going on, I was going to bed one night and all of a sudden I have both the bear and the panther are like prowling and growling and twitchy and like just running, you know, going back and forth around my bed. And I said, okay, something's up. It was a pretty clear sign that something was going on. And it says, awesome. Beth says, prehistoric black panther. Janet says, those are my favorite animals too. Nice. Well, I had an encounter with a black panther in person at a zoo. So that could have been my first actual clue before I understood what was going on. And yeah, it was a whole encounter that was pretty powerful. Made a real strong connection with the panther that was there and went through a whole lifetime in an instant while he was looking at me. And there was like, I don't know, 30 or so people in front of me that were looking at the tiger behind me because I was there to look at the tiger. And I felt this pressure on my head that made me turn my head around and look and saw the panther above everyone else's because he was up on a branch up above the crowd. And at some point, everybody who was looking at the tiger turned around to see what I was looking at. And they turned around to look, and then when that happened, the panther turned his back on everybody. And then I could move again. So it was pretty awesome. So if I had been alert enough, I would have understood that that was sort of a sign right there that the panther was going to be important to me. So when it did come, it wasn't really a surprise. So yeah. Beth says, last week I saw another past life. Okay. I haven't seen any new ones in a while because I've got too many collected in my head. Trying to keep them all straight. Are you going to share? You don't have to. I'd be really curious what would happen to me if I went somewhere where I'd had a past life and was, on the land and whatnot. I did have a dream about going to Ireland.
Probably have a better chance of triggering something if it was like from your immediately previous last life or something.
Well, that happened to my sister when they went to France, and they were going to see what was the castle's name? It's not coming to me. Anyway, she remembered the whole layout of it. The Palace at Versailles, that's what it was. And she remembered being there. She told me all about it. She actually helped my mother because my mother was lost and got separated from the group. And my sister knew everything there was to know about the area. So she just took her hand and says, okay, this way, and went along. And I told her she couldn't have been a noblewoman because she knew the bottom parts of the palace where the servants were and the kitchen was and the laundry was. And, a noble person wouldn't have known where that was at all. So that was pretty cool. Donna says, what was it, Beth? Gabrielle says, if we reincarnate, will I still be me? I hear Kundalini masters saying our human personality doesn't survive and will be something different and we're only one awareness. Well, I think each time you're born, you have a slightly different external persona that you're born with, that interact with the world with, but there's a core center of you that's always you, and in all of the lives. So there's a part of you that's always there. So the essential you doesn't change, but it's that trappings of circumstance, personality sometimes, and that kind of thing. Jay says, that's such an amazing story about you and the Black Panther experiencing your lifetime together in a moment. Yeah. Ben says, no worries, Jono. I never judge how anyone eats. We are all different. Gabrielle says, they are saying our ego doesn't survive and we can't be who we are here ever again because what reincarnates is something different. That scares me. I want to be me. You will still be you. Not the same thing. There's an essential spirit that is connected to all of your lives and all of your lifetimes that you can look through and see them all and be them all. And that's not ego, that is something else. So, Janet says, past lives are interesting. I wonder who I was in the past life. I was told two different things by two people. The best way to have a past life memory is to remember it yourself, not have someone tell you, because people telling you what your past life was could be wrong. Because, they're human. And some of them just might be making stuff up to make money. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I used to go to psychic fairs all the time when I used to live in a bigger town that had psychic fairs all the time, and I never met a good psychic at a psychic fair.
Sure, there might be some, but
Well, I'm sure there must be, but yeah, Siofra was by far the best psychic, and I didn't meet her at any psychic fair. She was the only one that's had any accuracy of any of the ones I ever ran into.
and I try not to brag. Gabrielle says, yeah, that's what I sense, that my ego will go away, not my essence will be the same. Yeah, I love all the mess. Get to be ourselves. And it says, very true, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I remember some of them in dreams, some of them in past life regressions. Some of them I was born remembering, so there was no interference from any other human on the outside because they were memories that were intact, parts of memories anyway, of the lives that were intact at the time I came in. So they allowed me these two different, very vastly different lives to remember, which certainly changed how I viewed the world from the get-go. It's probably good since I was born in 1950 and racism and homophobia and all the stuff they're trying to bring back now was really rampant then, and it never made sense to me. So, so Jono says, Siofra, for a while now, I've been convinced this is my first life. Maybe that's true, maybe it's false, and I'm using that belief to explain my childlessness. Do you think it's even possible that this is maybe my first life? No, you're not stupid enough for it to be your first life.
I was kind of going to say the same thing. I mean,
you have too much awareness of yourself to have this be your first life. That's definitely not true. Sorry. Wasn't trying to be crude there, but trying to make the point. And in esoteric reality, all your lifetimes are happening simultaneously. So this is your first and last life at the same time, if you want to look at it that way.
I don't think that's a practical way to look at things.
Well, I agree, but some people like it. They like to look at it that way. And it's true, although not useful. And the other thing, too, is if it is your first life, how useful is that? It's like not very. It might be able to use it as an excuse for certain kinds of behavior that you might have difficulty overcoming, but it doesn't change the fact that you need to grow and become a better version of yourself, whoever that might be.
Yeah,
all of us have to do that.
In an ultimate sense, take the ultimate sense, and everything that exists out there is within you, in your head, actually, all of it. So, might as well applaud yourself as God, and but don't let it give you a big ego, because you're still not going to be out and be able to miracleize out $1 billion. I've been trying, and I can tell you it's not easy to do.
No. Sandcat says, I've been having dreams about people I know. These are what I can call real dreams. I'm having real conversations with people in my dreams. Yeah, there's different kinds of dreams. There's the dreams that are like precognitive. There's dreams that are real, are past life memories. Dreams that are talking to the people that exist and so forth. There's the dreams of mushing around whatever you've been thinking about and experiencing during the day or watching on television. Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of different kinds of dreams. Janet says, yep, LOL. Dan Cat says, they are telling me their innermost feelings. Donald says, thank you, frowny face. What? You don't like the fact that we don't think you're an idiot? Come on. That would be a compliment, right? Gabrielle says, I feel like a collective being right now made up of little fractals. I'm experiencing myself as an army of cells. Yeah, it'll last for a while that way, but you'll integrate them. And that's the thing. It's like you need to integrate all the different aspects of yourself and become the center of the fractal pattern. So you're the center of the gemstone, looking out at all the different facets that are you, instead of sliding around from one facet to another. So if you can work on centering yourself in yourself, that'll help, so that you always have the same you that we were talking about. That essential you is always there at the core of the experience and at whatever is going on around you, and that helps to manage that better. Gabriel says, the information must be really stored well in my subtle body, because I do feel a big presence stuffed into a body. Okay, thanks, that's really encouraging. Hearts. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like we all have to try and muddle through and figure this out the best we can. And our experiences are always so different from each other. But the basis, or the basic thing we're all trying to do or want to do, is to become more in control of ourselves and become ourselves, so that we're not like being tossed about by the whim of society and influences and things like that, to have our own mind and make up our own decisions. That way, at least if you're being, if you have like made a really bad choice or something, and you have consequences for it, then you can own them and go like, okay, that was mine, and I'm going to own that, and then I'm going to not do that again, because I'm going to learn from that experience. I don't know. Janet says, any advice for someone who picks up on people's thoughts? I pick up on people's thoughts, and the filth that's in people's mind throws me off track at times. I understand that one completely because that's been me, or was me for a long time. And getting control over your own energy, learning how to shield from your thoughts from other people's thoughts and other people's thoughts from yours. I have a I've said I started figuring that out reading the X-Men, the Phoenix saga in the X-Men, where the character is a super telepath and she's hearing everybody's thoughts and so forth, and it started I connected to that whole thing. That was one of them anyway, and her trying to have Dr. Xavier trying to give her shields and stuff like that so she can control her abilities and whatnot. I thought, hey, that sounds like a good idea. So I started trying to do that. And at that time, I was living mostly by myself, away from people. So that helped because then I didn't have the pressure I had when I was living in close proximity to a lot of people. Because for a long time, I couldn't live for more than about a year or so in any one location because it would take me a while to tune into everybody's thoughts. And then after a while, that I would start hearing their thoughts whether I wanted to or not, and didn't have any control over it. So that learning of control is essential. That's why the sacred tree meditation, and shielding, grounding, centering, controlling your own thoughts and so forth. And I only hear thoughts if they're going to put me at risk, or if it's a piece of information I really need to know for one reason or another, like someone else is going to be at risk, or I need to be aware of a situation so I can get myself out of there so that I'm not at risk, that kind of thing. So, yeah, and I decided that it was rude to read other people's thoughts, and really I don't want to know what they're thinking, because you know what I mean. Really, who needs to know that? And they're allowed their privacy, to have whatever thoughts that they have. And it is interesting, like as a massage therapist, I could watch my own thoughts and I'm picking up the energy of the person I'm working on. And if all of a sudden I have some very strange thoughts that are generally not in my head, I know they're coming from the person on the table, and that sort of gives me a clue as to what's going on in their head. And generally, it's not good when that happens. Because, like I said, I only want to hear and sense the things that are potentially dangerous to me. So that would be that kind of a situation. Um, so yeah, I've got a lot of practical videos up on my YouTube channel that you can watch. And Teresa's having me work on doing a meditation, creating a meditation to help figure out how to do the shields better. So I've been working on that, figuring out how I want to approach that. So that'll be one of my newer ones that'll come out hopefully. And I've just been waiting for the inspiration to hit so that I know that I've got it down right in my head and been thinking about it. But yeah, you have to be in control of your own mental environment, and that includes being able to exclude other people's energy from yours. You can't get to know yourself if you're inundated by everyone else all the time. It's sort of like being an extreme telepath empath, and then you pick up on their stuff, and it's just very confusing. So yeah. So Janet says, thank you so much. And Jono says, Janet, you just asked the best person alive to answer that question. Again, new people, Siofra can read your thoughts. She chooses not to. Yeah, thank you. Gabrielle says, oh my God, I like that you like comic books. And it says, I appreciate you. I'm glad. Beth says, I have that so intense, I'm ready to drink city water to calcify my third eye. Oh, I know. It is just so annoying. Yeah. I mean, I have some thoughts that I'm like, okay, that was a stupid thought, but it just went through. Like the other day, I was in the grocery store, and I'm wearing a mask because my daughter got sick with the virus I had last year that was really super bad, and I thought it's around right now. I should probably take precautions. And I see this woman with a child, and I look at the child and I says, germ factory, in my head. I'm like, well, that wasn't very nice, but it's true. They are a little germ factory. So yeah, I'm aware of those kinds of thoughts when I have them. It's like they're Gabriella says, I read people's thoughts sometimes if I'm feeling unsafe, so I have to remind myself to not be in anyone's energy field if I'm safe. It's a hypervigilance thing. I didn't realize I was doing that. Yeah, and it's true. I mean, there's certain times that I find myself being hypervigilant. Like if Ian fixes the car and then tells me it's fixed, and then I'm not sure if it's fixed, then I'm very hypervigilant about everything going on in the car. It's like, yeah, it's funny. But we do that to ourselves. Carla says, right? Then it says, it's very annoying. Gabriel says, laugh out loud, Beth. Donald says, Luna's boy, my stepson soon, hopefully, pulls thoughts out of thin air. He's amazing at it. Nothing is sacred or safe with him. Yeah, I gotta watch out for those really young telepaths because, man, can they. And then the worst thing is the projecting telepaths. It's just like, they are so annoying. You gotta be able to block them because they can just sort of like launch a thought form at your head and bang you one. And so you definitely need to have shielding for that. Carla says, one thing I've noticed is that we're as strong, maybe stronger than other people's junk. We can change the energy in a room with a look, ladies. This is true. Beth says, Gabriel, it gets that intense. Thank goodness Dave likes to go to the store. Well, see, that's why I have like assistants, right? If I'm going to the store and I'm feeling vulnerable or something like that, I'll usually be wearing different gemstone bracelets I have charged up to help energize and intensify my energy shields and protections and so forth in case something gets through my shield and whatnot. And yeah, so Janet says, laugh out loud. Gabriel says, laugh out loud, Jono. Gabriel says, I heard some telepaths can make other people hallucinate when they're experiencing poltergeist. I suppose that's a possibility if the person is very unshielded and is also a telepath themselves and can pick up on other people's thoughts. And if they're having poltergeist activity, it could be that they're the poltergeist themselves, which would mean that they were definitely unshielded and spreading out all kinds of energy. Beth says, me too, Siofra. Jen says, what's the difference between a spirit animal and a totem animal? Okay, so spirit animal, anyone can have a spirit animal. You can adopt a spirit animal. You can ask a spirit animal for help and be there. Totem animal usually says something about your nature, the nature of your soul. It's kind of like a core personality trait. And the deer was always mine from childhood. I had total strangers come up and tell me I looked like a deer to them. I mean, it was just so obvious that that was the case. And deer is healing, gentle healing medicine, also sort of skittish and willing to hide at a moment's notice and try to camouflage and blend into the background if possible, and not moving, letting nobody see them. And the bear, I sort of became acquainted with when I lived up north because I needed to have something to protect my children and myself, and it sort of got incorporated into my deeper self. And then a power or spirit animal is more externalized and not as internal. That sort of basic way of looking at it. Native Americans don't like us to use the word totem for that animal that's inside of us, but the reality is everyone probably has one. It's not really, I don't think, a cultural thing. It's just that they came up with the word for it and recognized it. But, the way I look at it anyway. So Saeed says, hi, Saeed. Gabrielle says, seems like a superpower if you can control it. If someone is trying to harm you, then you can make them hallucinate and get away. Well, I certainly have used my superpower to make people afraid of me and run. So I don't think that they hallucinated, but I don't know. I wasn't in them at the time. Maybe they did. Jono says, hi, Saeed. Jen says, I could listen to your stories all day, Siofra and Ian. You all have had so many amazing experiences. It helps that I'm 75 and I've got 70 years worth of memories on this subject, so that helps a lot. Yeah, I saw your arm come in. Gabrielle says, I heard mandalas can help integrate a mind according to Carl Jung. Maybe I can paint them and it can help me integrate my fragments. Yeah, why not? Sounds like it'd be fun to do for an artist. So Zaid, if you have any questions, we're almost done with our live show. We only have an hour and a half and we're at an hour and 25 minutes. So if you have something you wanted to ask, now's the time. Gabrielle says, yeah. Yeah, artists like doing stuff like that. It's very relaxing sometimes to see patterns and so forth. I like those things. But yeah, when I was younger, I didn't really think I was all that special. I mean, like as much experiences as I'd had then, I tended not to pay much attention to them unless someone started asking me questions. And then I would start telling them my experiences. And then after talking for a while, I went, wait a minute, there's a lot of those. There's quite a few of those experiences. Gabrielle says, and it helps quiet the mind. Yes, helps to keep you focused and in the moment and quiet your thoughts because if you're not paying attention, you're going to like go off and lose the pattern. Donald says, have you told us yet how Bunny is doing? Shame, Ian, you're exhausted. No, we did tell you how the bunny was doing. I don't know. You might have been busy at the time. Bunny's doing great. Shay says, does it get easier with time and practice to have your shield's boundaries activated every day? Oh, yeah, it becomes sort of common, natural, normal, and you don't have to think about it too much. But in the beginning, you have to practice these things because, like, you're building an energetic pattern in another plane of existence, let's say, and it's like it's not all here. It's like here and elsewhere at the same time, and to imprint that, it takes time for it to become like solidified on the other planes and stable and whatnot. So whatever you're doing in magic, when you first start out, repetition is a necessary component of that because each time you repeat the action or the meditation or whatever it is, you're feeding that thought form image creation that you have and making it more solidified and real to you, and then it becomes more solidified and real everywhere else. So then it affects the real world around you, as well as protects your own mind and energy field and so forth. So
Yeah,
it's like, yeah,
one of the things that people in India and other places do with the mantras is a huge amount of repetitions. They've got mantras, you can get them to do about anything with a mantra, but you have to do it like the repetitions they use are like 100 million repetitions or some crazy amounts or a million or like that type of thing. So, but they do it basically without visualization. If you do it with a proper visualization and focus on what you're doing, you'll take a lot more repetitions before you get to it, and you repeat something enough, and it will become automatic. And then the ritual. Barton talks about this. The ritual works in reverse at that point. You've done it enough, and you've done the visualizations enough, and then a point comes where you only have to make the motions, and the visualizations and things will happen automatically, and that's when your power will start come through, and you've got that. You repeated it to the point where it becomes automatic, and all you have to do is make the movements, and then all the things happen as if you were using your full willpower and everything on it. But it takes, just repetition over and over to reach that point.
it's like putting grooves in,
Yeah.
and the groove gets
So,
deeper and deeper and more
so
complete.
by themselves, repetition are a good magical act. Just repeat, 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 repeat ceaselessly. But if you focus your mind and your concentration on it, then you have to do a lot less repetitions to get to that point.
That says, when I was little, I thought everyone was this way. Yeah, me too, until I realized they weren't. It's very disappointing. Shay says, understood, thank you. Beth says, magical boot camp on your terms. Gabrielle says, such unique, beautiful souls in this chat. I appreciate everyone sharing. Yes, it's been great. We love our conversations. Beth says, Shay, it gets as easy as brushing your teeth. You'll get there. We love you, Shay. Yes. And that's the thing. It's like when you're first starting out, it can seem overwhelming and it feels like you're trying to reach for the top of a mountain and you haven't even found the foothills yet to get there. It's like it feels very much out of reach and hard to go, to get where you want to be. But if you try not to think about that and you're just doing it each time, it's going to get easier and easier. Kind of like anything like body memory. happens, like, when you're a dancer or an athlete or whatever, and your body, your cells are programmed from repetition from when you're doing an activity
Yeah,
over
it's
and over
exactly
again.
the same thing.
And so it's the same thing except on a psychic,
It's like muscle
spiritual
memory,
level.
except it's that
Yeah.
psychic, magical, energetic
Memory.
memory. Yeah.
Yeah. Carla says, thank you so much, you guys. Much love to all. Always the highlight of the week. Donna says, Shay, I agree with Siofra and Ian 100%. Practice makes it easy. There are also talismans and other things that you put heavy effort into their creation, and then they just keep working with no effort. Gabrielle says, maybe I shouldn't sleep with mantras playing all night long. It's probably making the Kundalini get more emboldened. The music is on all night long. Maybe it might be good to try something else. That says, effortless. Jay says, thanks so much, everyone. Love you back. Gabrielle says, it helps me to feel spiritually protected while I sleep. Okay, well, if it's working for that, don't worry about it. Donna says, thank you for the stream. Much love to everyone here. Yep, I guess we're at our time limit right now. So good time to say goodbye. And hopefully new people will come back next week and ask their questions earlier.
Yep.
So
Blessed be everyone. Thank
Yep.
you for being here and attending. That's your wonderful input.
Yep, we really appreciate it. Beth says, blessed be. Ian is leaving you all a message, so I wait. Gabrielle says, fairies, hearts, and prayers. Fairies, love, and prayers. Lots of love buttons coming up. Always like the love buttons. Teresa says, love you. Ian says, thanks to everybody here. Blessed be. Bee. The sacred bees. All right, guys. Witten says, thank you. You're welcome, Witten. So hopefully we'll see you all next week. And in the meantime, I'm going to see what I can do about getting a few things done. Apparently the hearts are just coming in nonstop. Somebody's having fun. I hate to stop. I'm still watching the hearts. All right, I guess I gotta go. Bye.